Hi, this is Tamika Caston-Miller, and you are listening to Think, Flow, Grow. This episode contains sensitive materials and material that may not be appropriate for the workplace. Hello, this is Tamika Caston-Miller with Ashe Yoga here in Houston, Texas. And I'm here with two friends who are amazing and awesome. And we are going to talk about intersectionality. We have Davina Davidson on Instagram at I am Davina Davidson.
Why'd you have to say it like that?
Because that's what it looks like to me. Every time I see it, I'm like, I am Davina Davidson. Everywhere else, she's yoga with Davina, but on Instagram, she's like, I am. And then we have Shahrzad Kahkeshani, who is Shahrs on Instagram. Isn't that right?
Mm-mm.
No, what is it?
Shahrzad K _.
Oh, I thought that was on Facebook. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to find her on Facebook because she ain't going to accept your Facebook request.
Nope.
She didn't know you like that. And I'm, of course, at Diva Transcending. Give us all a follow because actually Shahrs and Davina have this amazing challenge going on. Y'all want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Yay.
The Yoga Love Dare. Yay. Shahrs hit me up and said that she wanted to bring it back. Did you participate in the whole thing or just part of it?
I did part of it, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this.
Mm-hmm.
What made you, I think you've told me this before, but let the people know, what made you want to do it again?
So 2 years ago, well, no, I'll leave 2 years ago aside. I had been thinking about it in all of December, just kind of this return to self. This theme has kind of come up for me the last several months, and the last 6 months, especially 2019 with everything that happened, was a return to the truth within the self. And then once you start healing that, it spreads out, floods out to everybody else. And so I was thinking about it in December. For whatever reason, that challenge had really resonated with me because it's this reminder that you're not just one and done, right? We have 7 themes, one for each day, and then every week you come right back to it. It's not like Layla said in a talk the other night. I'll probably reference her again in this talk, but she said there is no measurement to whatever you're working on. It's you wake up every day and you hit the reset button and start all over again.
Yeah.
Her context was in your relationship to white supremacy. And, it was, we can come back to that if we want to, but it's also...
but white supremacy doesn't exist anymore. We're in a post-racial society.
That's why
we're going there.
That's exactly why you need patience, kindness, to practice service, gratitude, humility, nourishment, honesty. All that good stuff.
Yeah, and you keep coming back. So that was one of the things. And when I went and did a Vipassana 10-day course meditation, and every day in that meditation, I kept coming back to me. So that was when I was in the car driving back, I think, or maybe the next morning was when I texted you. And I said, let's do it again. And I was, surprised that you wanted to, lead it as well. I was like, I don't know what she wants to do, but I'll take it on if I need to. It just seems important.
Isn't it amazing how we have our great ideas whenever we're actually alone with ourselves?
In silence.
Like, literally. I mean, yes, you were in silence for 10 days. For me, it's even if I'm just away from my own life. I have this joke that I say all the time, but as we know, jokes are based in reality. And that is, if I'm in the city of Houston, I'll be working. I actually have to leave to not work. I don't know what that's about. Maybe I feel like I have to be on my hustle so that I can, be a part of the provider, the provisions of the family. You know what I mean? But like, if I'm in the city, I'm working, and I don't get my best ideas when I'm like that.
What's funny is after teacher trainings back in the day when we would lead them pretty regularly, like, I don't know, the next day I would go check in at a hotel, like Hotel Zaza or whatever, and stay for a couple of days. And that was my time to like decompress and be with myself. And when I got away from that practice is actually when shit started to fall.
That is so awesome that you did that. I did not do. Well, I will say that after or before my retreats, I always have a few days in another city that that is going to be just for me and Lenny, and they're fantastic. I mean, it really is like, and I will spend the money for whatever that looks like, because I think that holding space for people is a lot of work.
It's hard. Like, it's hard, and even if you don't know that you're holding space for people, because it's like very much a practice. We were just talking about that the other day in the sense of like, how do you actually do it? But also when you're not like intentionally doing it, you're holding the space for people to learn for whatever is happening. Those trainings were really intense, back then. And I remember that I learned from just watching you. And my first teacher training that I assisted, that night after day 10, I was like, I went home and I was a vegetable. I remember I had a date that night and I texted him and I was like, he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to make 0 decisions. I've been a decision maker for 10 days on the operational side. I want to make 0. He didn't get it. That was the funny part.
I know. I remember you told me this story. Like, he's like asking you all these questions and you're like,
red or white? I was like, just wine. Wine in a movie. Pick both. He was like,
and wine in a movie I don't have to think through.
Yes.
It was so funny. Whenever I came back from training this past weekend, and Lenny's like, what do you want to watch? And I'm like, something that requires 0 brain cells. And she's like, Fast and the Furious? I'm like, except that. Anything but that.
Why?
Because I hate those movies.
Oh, no.
I hate those movies. They're the worst movies ever.
No.
Oh my gosh, I can't. I've studied film. I can't watch those, seriously.
I love them.
That one, Fast and the Furious, when they were on the plane and they were on the runway and all that crap was happening, I'm like, bruh. I should not have to suspend my reality that hard for this. I already have to just watch romantic films. Oh, you gotta act like somebody who's gonna stand out there in the cold with a radio and you're gonna hear it. And they're gonna be playing music that like is meaningful for you outside of your house. First of all, you're not going to hear it. Secondly, in my home, in my world, if I would have lived with my parents and someone would have been playing that, my mom would have been like, who is that? Who is that? Get off my lawn! And probably in rollers.
There's it's maybe like in the last couple of years, there's a movie, it's a Black film, where she's like standing outside of this cabin and she's singing like, to the end, or like the end of the road by Boyz II Men or something like that. Oh. It's the same exact thing that you just said.
Wasn't it the one where it was like Sanaa Lathan and the
Listen, there's probably a lot of them, but the one that I'm talking about is with Tiffany Haddish and the other girl. I can't think of her name. But yeah.
You know what? This is a perfect place to start. Because Tiffany Haddish, as much as I like her, I see her tap dancing a lot. Just to be like accepted into the world. Like I like her so much. I love her. Oh my God, in Girls Trip. But I loved Girls Trip.
Yeah.
But I feel like ever since she came on the scene, like she is it's hard to take her seriously in any other way because she's so constantly the jester. And I just feel like that's the place where Black folks have been since the vaudeville days. Like, let me be the jester for you. Let me entertain you. And she's very much that person. And I think she has a lot more to say than that, but I think she's kind of gotten trapped in that. But
ma'am, how many times have you been put in a box?
A lot. Okay. And I think that's the point is like, how do we crawl out of that box? How do we crawl out of that? Like for me, I know it's shown up for like the whole Black love thing. And it's like, well, my spouse isn't Black. Like I want to be in this Black love thing. I want to be in the Black love club. I like the Black love playlist. So does she. I like Black love too. Just like I feel like like what happens with I don't feel like being in the interracial love box. I don't want to be in any box. I just want to be in the love box. But it's just an example of like how, you have a reality. So like with Tiffany Haddish, she's funny. And so now her box is the jester. But can't she crawl out of that and do something else?
I mean, that's a part of her branding and what, maybe this is pretty early on in her career. So maybe this is just where she starts. And once she has her foot really in the industry, that she might shift and show us another side of her, because we all know that specifically on social media, we do put people in boxes,
and we put ourselves in boxes.
And people then assume that this is who we are because this is what we've shown them, which is the lamest.
And then when you show another side of yourself, it's like, ew, you're so different. It's like, let people evolve.
This is exactly why my page is called I Am Davina Davidson, because I am not only a yoga instructor. You have your whole life messed up if you think that that's the only thing that I'm capable of. And so that is the new shift for me that came out of, doing some personal growth work in December and just like getting back to who I am as a person, and spending time with myself in solitude. So I didn't do the 10-day silent,
Did you do it?
I would not do that personally. But I do have other practices that I use to help get back to myself.
I don't know that I could do that. I mean, maybe. I've done 3-day silent retreat, but I think that's my limit.
I think once we got to, by day 10, we could start talking again because they ease you back in. And we're all like, we need another 3 days. It goes deep. And I think that I thought of both of you frequently. I thought of a lot of people frequently because you have nothing. I got nothing. And it's special because I thought of y'all frequently as well. And a lot of actually what you teach is, and what you talk about is talked about in that as well. Same thing with you. I mean, it was in a different, so we speak, with Sanskrit primarily, but they use the language of the days, which was Pali. And so it's the same. So instead of like samskara, it's sankara. So it's similar. And I remember listening, I was like, I know all these words, but they talk a lot about healing the samskaras and the like through all the work and everything. They talked about the kleshas. They talked about all that stuff there. So I thought that was really fascinating. Cool. And it's purely about your own self. That's the thing that I loved. It's like not religious. It's none of that. But it's purely about finding stillness and finding the truth and listening to the truth within so that you can heal yourself.
Well, speaking of what, Davina was saying, I mean, clearly that is a practice that you practice. And what about, did you have any kind of like shift in any boxes that you've been put in, and have any of those boxes shown up in your curated Instagram? Are you curating an Instagram?
Not purposely. I don't think I've been this active on Instagram ever, in an intentional way. And a lot of it is like this, both of y'all's challenges, I shouldn't say y'all's, but the challenges that we're doing. I know 2019 I posted like 6 times or something like that, but perhaps I needed to like disappear for a little bit.
But you're posting deep.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is, and I like that one post I had, and it was, it's this message that keeps coming back, is that through silence, like there's liberation through silence and through stillness. And I think that's what I'm experiencing. And I'm hearing these words that are coming out, which is really cool. I'm trying to think what, if I had a box, something that shifted for me. My big realizations and shifts were really subtle because I've been in the work for a long time. So I didn't have something drastic to go from one end to the other. The first one I remember, feeling was I've always been vehemently against having children. It's like a hard no. I don't even want to touch babies. Whenever there's a baby shower, I forget that there is a baby involved, and I get the mother a massage as a gift.
That's awesome.
And I have many friends, and I'm a little bit ashamed of this, but I have many friends who I have relationships with the mother, and like when we get together, it's like time to get away, and I haven't actually met their children. Or I've had like minimal amounts of time. So I'm realizing that now at 35. But anyways, through that process, I realized that there was just a fear of not like giving enough. Like I'm not going to be good enough for this child. It was more about my own shit. Am I allowed to curse?
Mm-hmm.
On
Yeah,
I already said curse.
I fully plan on cursing.
It's funny. So, but that's what I realized is there's a lot of fear around what I was going to bring to it, and me not being good enough and things like that. And whatever that fear was lifted during that time. And one day I walked out of the meditation hall and I was like, I still don't necessarily want children actively. And if it happens, I'd be very at peace with it. And so that was and it was like a subtle, it's almost like a fog over my body that was lifted.
That's amazing.
So, and that was only day 3.
For what it's worth, like, we're going to screw up our children regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just wonder what, like, Joie says to her therapist. You know, I'm just like, just, you know, try to keep, I mean, I'm a Capricorn mom. I know that had to have been tough.
Well, the beauty is,
Capricorn mom.
I have a friend who, she's a 4 or 5 year old, and, you know, she's going through her own stuff. And the other night at dinner, one of the other girls said, she's like, oh, you know, it's such a shame. This is all the stuff that's going to ruin her when she's older. She said it some way like that. And it was nicer, but that was my takeaway. And I was like, you know, but what's great is that here we are sitting and having this conversation, or the 3 of us are very much involved in the deeper aspects of self-growth and self-development and the yoga, which, you know, we may even bring the sutras in at some point. But there's so much, like, just in doing that work, we're already an example for the children that are in our lives, so that they know that we're going to mess up and there's ways to grow. And so just by yogis having children, we're already creating a better
but I wasn't a yogi when I had mine.
And you are now.
Which I would have been.
I think it's funny because I more recently, in the last couple of months, have been looking up more horoscope and astrology type stuff, just because I had this interaction with I don't know what to call her, but we'll just say I had interaction with a woman, and it's like you could plan out when you're going to have your kids, you know, look at all of that data around, you know, when the moon is in Capricorn and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what?
Yes.
It's a whole nother world. But when I read mine, my sun, moon, and ascendant, and then I did it for Tino, and we read it together, and it was like, oh my God.
Everything makes sense now.
It makes sense.
Wow.
He's such a lover. Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah, and it's like me and my daughter. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we are so similar in so many ways. She has so much Capricorn in her chart. But at the same time, she herself is very kind of non-confrontational. She doesn't really want to. And I'm just like, we're going to confront this situation until it's dead. Like, we are going to have resolution on everything. We have to bring it to, you know, to maturity. But, you know, which FYI doesn't work for anyone in my life, my family members. I mean, and you know, so one of the ways that, you know, this episode speaks to us as intersectional people, and one of those ways is by having a biracial daughter who's Cuban and Black, and being a mom of a biracial daughter, which is really interesting. Of course, you've had that experience because I'm talking to Davina, are biracial as well. And then, but my biracial situation is so her father is an immigrant and non-English speaker. I'm a Spanish speaker. And then I am a Black woman within in a queer relationship. So with a white woman. So there's a lot of diversity just in 3 people and a lot of experiences coming to that. And then Shahrs is an Iranian American woman. It's a Persian woman, Persian like the cat. You know? And I remember that comedian used to always say that. No, we're not the other ones. We're Persian. But then even, you know, within your friends, I remember your friend coming to your birthday party and he was saying, no, I'm real Persian because I'm Zoroastrian and she's not. So I'm the real Persian and she's not. And I was like, what?
That's funny.
It was your friend, the guy. I can't remember. It's whoever is the real Persian of your friends.
I don't know, actually.
He came a little later. I know you'd have wine that night.
Oh, I had wine that night.
But I was super curious. I was like, what is real Persian? Like, I guess it's like before and after Islam, I guess is the marker. But, you know, so there's that. You're the daughter of an immigrant, but not the typical immigrant story because your family is well off. You know, y'all didn't like walk across the border or fly in and overstay your visas or anything like that. I think it's important right now to just say that, so that we're clear, there's no misinformation. And with respect to immigrants, most immigrants legally immigrate to the U.S. It's a complete myth that most immigrants are undocumented. So I feel it important to make this little PSA. It's Black History Month right now, but we're going to make this PSA since there are also Black Latinos. And most immigrants come in on a plane. So, and the most undocumented immigrants actually just overstay their visas. So we're clear that when we're talking about immigration, we are not making any assumptions. And this is not a conversation on immigration, but you are the daughter of an immigrant. My daughter's the daughter of an immigrant. And anyway, I'm just curious about how our multiple influences have informed how we move about the world. Like, I feel like we move about the world differently because we have to be two different people often. I feel that way.
I do not. I'm Davina. I am Davina Davidson.
I am Davina Davidson. But are you not different with like the white side of your family?
No, I'm not. I'm the same.
Are they different with you?
So I actually don't really speak to, or I'm not in relation with the white side of my family. My mom was adopted, and most of her adopted family has passed away. They disowned her when she, married or fell in love with a Black person.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually never met my grandfather. I never met my mom's brother and people on that side of the family.
Well, forget them anyway.
Yeah, so definitely not an issue there for me. Yeah, I think that, no, I think I'm the same.
But come on, you don't code switch a little bit whenever you're dealing with folks. I mean, so if you walk into the Houstonian and you're trying to,
No, I'm definitely not code switching for white people.
At the Houstonian to get a job?
No, I have totally interviewed there.
I know, you code switch it off. They're like, she's too Black to work here.
Yeah, no, I do not do that.
But you know what's crazy is when I went to the Houstonian with a gift certificate, FYI, because they're expensive to go to the spa, the only Black people I saw the entire time were in the basement.
What?
They were the towel ladies.
Oh, wow.
Yes, literally on any floor that was main or up, there were no Black people, even cleaning people.
One of my private clients has membership there, and we go there occasionally. I've definitely seen Black people. I've also seen other races there.
No, I mean working.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, no. That's interesting.
Isn't that weird?
That's a little weird.
In Houston?
Yeah.
There's not a single...
Well, first of all, when you step into the Houstonian, it's like you're in a whole nother world.
It's
you go in at 10 a.m. in the morning, you're like, why aren't you at work?
Yeah, no.
Like, why are all these people here?
We don't work here. We do not. We are of the people who don't work.
Yeah.
Yes. I find that to be a really interesting place because it's so different from the entire rest of the city of Houston.
I agree.
It's like a little piece of Kingwood just placed itself down there. But that's how Memorial is, actually.
Yeah.
Interestingly, as an aside, one of my friends said that she went to a grocery store in the Memorial area, and I knew you grew up in Memorial. I'm super curious about that experience. But and there was a person with her housekeeper there, and the reason why she knew it was her housekeeper is because she was in an actual maid's uniform.
That's freaking
Whoa,
weird.
I've never seen that.
Get out.
Anywhere. I've never seen that.
I've never seen that before either.
Right.
And she's
2020.
I know. Can you imagine going somewhere and seeing that? It's like, I want to make sure everyone knows I'm not here with my friend this person works with for me.
That's terrible.
I was like, whoa, that's just mind-blowing. But I know what happens. I know what happens. So
I'll circle back and just say, I don't code switch. And this is also why people are often scared of me or intimidated by me or think that I'm mean and blah, blah, blah. I will say once you get to know me and you spend more time with me, then you may experience me in a different way. It's not that like I'm changing my personality or, trying to fit in differently. It's more of like, oh, now you get me.
Right.
You've accepted, okay, this is who Davina is. And a lot of people do not accept me, and I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah.
Can I ask,
for sure.
Have you always been like that, or was there a period where you came into that?
So if you go and watch any of the sister talks with my sister, yes, I've always been this way. And this is what actually prompted me to do the astrology work, because most of my adult life, people would be like, well, how did you get here? You know, how did you arrive at being this kind of way? How did you get so strong? Or what happened that you da-da-da-da? And, you know, one, I would say like, oh, after watching Michelle Obama, I'd be like, well, my dad loved me, which is true. And so, you know, I have this perspective because my father loved me and he didn't leave me and all that kind of stuff. But the astrology and reading that stuff is like, oh, this is like deeper stuff that I think about who I think I am, whether people see me this way or not. I'm like, oh, that is me. And so it revealed, it gave me something to talk about in regards to like who I am. I've always been this way. Literally, I was born like this, and I would say that. But now I can be like, and here's why. Because I'm a Virgo. My moon sign is, you know, Pisces, and I can, you know, and say, like, now go read that.
Yeah. If you want to know more, just read my chart.
Google it.
What about you? Have you found yourself code switching?
Always. I think that today, like now, January 2020, I'm the most even keeled I have been in all of my life. And even like it's gone through phases and iterations of it to fully accept who I am and where I am. That's been a huge thing. You know, it's being a twin to a brother growing up in an Iranian household. And it was all subtle. Like no one straight like comes out to say, you know, one's better, one's worse, but these subtle little I was just listening to a podcast of microaggressions is the word that's popping into my head, but that's not the right word here. But just these subtle ways of how he was treated or I was treated taught me that women and men were different. And then there was that. There was like the being Persian or being the only brown person or one of very few brown people in the schools that I went to. That was one that it's like the identity of you have to be successful. What does success mean? You know, quote unquote success. And it was, is it financial? Is it being like the leader, the top of the food chain kind of thing? So it's going from being an accountant to being a yoga studio. I was part-time first and then manager and then a yoga teacher. And I've gotten comments like, you mop floors? I'm like, yes, I mop floors. You know, it's like these things. So it's like, do I shut that part of myself off? Or, you know, I would have to qualify, well, I have my CPA. Like there was for a long time, I would say, well, I used to be a CPA just to be like, oh, I'm smart enough. You know? Yeah. And one of my therapists a while back, I'd never heard this phrase before. And he was like, he called it intellectual abuse. And I was like, I didn't realize that was a thing.
What is that?
Intellectual abuse is, you know, similar to like verbal abuse, emotional abuse, whatever. But if you're constantly being, like from parents, from whatever figure above you, being hounded on like being intellectual. Like for us, it was like, you have to have these accolades. You have to have all this stuff. But just me having a CPA and having those letters behind my name doesn't actually make me smarter than someone who doesn't have those letters.
But it does give you some letters.
It gives me some letters.
And I didn't openly say what my education background was. Like you'd be like, but I still have my CPA. However, occasionally I will flex real hard. Don't think.
I flex all the time. I do.
But
because people assume. They make assumptions.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, we were talking about this last night, actually, and that was why I wrote about discernment, discriminatory discernment last night in my post. And we were talking about that, and it's really discerning and knowing for yourself why and when you're saying those things.
Yeah.
You know, like I would, like if I'm honest with myself, I would say it because there was a part of me that wasn't ready to fully step into the yoga and like healing world. And I wanted to keep this tie and I wanted to seem like I was smart enough and that I was, you know, somehow in charge and in power or something.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of uncovering that, but that's the truth behind it.
Well, a lot of people, though, they just assume that if you're a yoga instructor, then, like, you like, I don't even understand why people assume that you're so crunchy that you decided to forego a formal education and, you know, your education is like a moon deck and oracle cards and, you know, and you don't know anything. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, maybe that's some people, but a lot of people who come to yoga and then subsequently teach it are coming from crazy careers from which we are making active choices to depart. And it's like, and we have to have something in there, but I also think that there's the thing about being a woman in yoga that has something that plays into that somehow. And I don't even know how it plays into it, but it does. But I know that, so for example, when people have come to my classes as a full-figured woman, I have had on more than one occasion, people say something like, you know, for some reason, I felt that your class was going to be your flow class was going to be a little more restorative than what it was. I was wrong. And I was like, it's a vinyasa class. What you expect? Like, big girls flow. Hashtag big girls flow. No, I mean, it was, yeah. I don't know if it was, that said, it could just be me immediately going to that. And it could be because people associate me with yin and restorative. But I teach equal numbers. I teach equal yin and yang. So I don't understand why that would be the immediate presumption. So anyway, but being a big girl in yoga, I mean, I had to stop flex. I had to actively stop flexing in yoga because I was getting hurt.
I love it.
I'm like, screw that guy chaturanga. I mean, yeah, I can do it. It's like being able to make freaking, you know, roux from scratch for gumbo. Like, yeah, I can make it, but why would I? When I live in Houston, I can go buy roux and it tastes the same.
So silly. I will say that when I definitely started practicing my inversions in public, because I practiced for a long time at home, and I was a former gymnast, so get your whole life,
yeah,
you know, yeah. So I'm like, and I've been an athlete my whole life. So what's interesting is the people in the yoga community caught me after having kids, where I was thicker, but having children, I was never bigger, right? So people would say things like, and my mama has said a few things and whatevers around like, how are you able to do that? Like, what, the same way anyone else can?
I know.
Like, I practice, you know? So,
I don't see you and see you as anything but strong, though.
I mean, now I'm like, whatever, just whatever. It is.
Yeah, it is the message.
So, I mean, I had a family member when I first became a teacher, and they were like, I think I was wearing a tank top, and the person said something about, well, you don't really have the body as a fit, like, to represent a fitness thing. It was something about that. And so I'm like, it has nothing, like, it's just this idea, like, you have to look a certain way so people can think that they can do it too.
Well, how are you supposed to look it? I mean, dang.
I know. It's like, and they're like, you know, it's
more, y'all need to go on Shar's Instagram to see how crazy that statement is.
That's what it was, that's like, it has, and that's what I was saying. I was like, it's to them, and I don't know if they heard it in that moment. And I was like, but that's the point, is like, practice and movement is for every single person. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what color you're, what size you're, or whatever. Like, there is, like, the human body needs to move. And that's it. That's the bottom line, period.
I think it's interesting, though, that you mentioned about how you're flexing your CPA. and I think that for me, part of that, because I mean, like I said, I absolutely do flex my degrees, but the thing is that I think it's because people make such assumptions over Black women in general. But it's the same, like, I remember even when traveling, and it's not only in this country, it's like everywhere in the West. When I would travel and I start speaking Spanish, they're like, well, I was speaking Portuguese in Portugal, and they were like, are you from Angola? And I'm like, nah, I'm from the U.S. I'm like, I look Angolan? Like, thank you, because Angolans, they're cute, you know what I'm saying? And I was in Argentina, and they were like, are you Brazilian? And they would speak to me in Portuguese, and I'm like, A, I speak much better Spanish than Portuguese. Like, can we stay in Spanish? And B, why would you assume I'm Brazilian? And thank you. Because in a million years, I never thought I'd ever be confused with a Brazilian. Hallelujah. But it was weird. And the thing was is that, like, no one assumed that a Black woman would A, be traveling, and B, speak another language. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is a thing that is across the board. Yeah. Then, fast forward to, like, I remember seeing you for the first time at when Yoga One was Yoga One. And I was like, oh, there's a Black woman in the room. I'm like, okay, I like this place. Like, I felt, because the studio that I was with, the studios that I had been with before were either white or Asian. And they were, one was in Chinatown. So of course it was going to be Asian, but in that studio, people were doing all sorts of things. And I was like, well, it must be nice to have, that flexibility, and have had squatting be a part of your culture, And then in Sugarland, actually it was also white and Asian. Now I think about it, but anyway, but I never saw myself in those studios. And I'm so glad, that our friend works over at actually one of the studios where I used to be, because there was never diversity. Mm-hmm. So for me, like, walking in as a Black woman into a yoga studio was already a thing. Mm-hmm. And then being full figured was another thing. And that was before we even got to, my family, or the fact that, like all the other factors that I am.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I probably didn't really, because I've never actually been, like, really open about race like that, because I almost feel like I don't belong, or I haven't belonged in Black communities, and I don't belong in white communities. And it's more of like, Brene Brown, I belong to myself looking ass. And so I hadn't been very outspoken about being a Black woman or anything like that, until Trayvon Martin, and having a Black son, and then realizing, like, this is real. Like, you're a Black woman. And I remember at the old Yoga One, when Tino would run through the parking lot, I would yell at him at the top of my lungs, because there would always be police officers at Callie's at the sub sandwich place. And, like, just the fear of, like, my kid could get shot for running in a park. And we always wear hoodies. We're a hoodie family. So I'm like, never wear your hoodie in public like that, especially after dark. Like, I used to get real crunkless, over stuff like that. And so I didn't really identify with race in that way until, like, my child.
You're forced to.
And then I'll say this, like, I also didn't pull the Black card when, I was the director of teachers, a Black woman of 7 studios, managing over 135 teachers. Where they do that? Where does that happen? And, like, I never looked at it that way. I looked at it as, like, this is an opportunity. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm with these people, I'm in the work with them. I never stepped back. But now, because where society is going in terms of the yoga community and entrepreneurship and all of that,
oh Lord,
I mean, people are just throwing out, well, I'm doing this, and it's like a show. Look at me, look at me. And I'm like, I actually have the credentials to be like, well, look at that. Right?
You got the receipts.
I got the receipts. But at the same time, and this is where I flex. And at the same time, I have to be like, you know what? That's not even you anyways. You don't care about being in the limelight like that. Like, chill.
I've had to also, like, have my moment where I'm like, well, but, and then I'm like, I don't care. I don't care enough. That's not anything I'm trying to do or be. And so, but it's hard. It's hard to see people doing shit when you know the truth. When you know the truth. And also, so I had someone put on my page, I think it was that when I made that podcast episode where I was reading from Women Who Run with Wolves. And I started with that, and I was feeling empowered as fuck. Like, I was like, I know why now I run a different way. I'm running with wolves. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody can run with wolves. So anyway, and I'm like, and my crew does too. Like, we are a type that does not exist in other lands. And so, and I put on my Insta was like, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. And I put, I am a Black LGBTQ woman. And the person put, why did you put all of that in one line? I'm like, first of all, who you? But I'm like, because that's how I see myself. I don't see myself as I am Black, I am a woman, I am an LGBTQ person. I am all of that, all at the same time. All of them inform my identity. You can't have one without the other with me. You know, like, that is how I move about the world politically, socially, economically, is all informed by all of that. You know, and I'm like, what privilege it is for you to even be able to ask that question. Because clearly you have not had enough life experience to know that moving about the world of Black love, where I can't fit into that hashtag, is an exclusive world. It does not include my love. And we're just talking about love. We're not even talking about all of the other things, like listening to, you know, Black religious people and always using heteronormative terms and things like that. And I'm like, you know, that's my God too. That's my Jesus too. Or that's my Christian too. That's my Christ too. That's, you know, where do I fit into this dialogue about Blackness in church when it doesn't ever look like or include me, you know? And so, but what's crazy is that this person is a yogi and a friend, or a friend in quotation marks. And like, I just, I was hashtag shook. I was like, first of all, I couldn't believe she would ask that question publicly. Like, for me, that's something you DM. But I was just like, that's how I move about the world. Like that. And it's a triple threat as well, because when I come into a room, I'm coming in with all of that with me, with the, you know, like, you know how Oprah said, or was it Oprah or Maya, who said that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors? I think it was probably Oprah quoting Maya, not crediting Maya. I just need Oprah to listen to me at some point and promote me. Anyway.
Listen.
AKA Oprah, if you're listening.
Right.
AKA anybody who is connected to Oprah. Can you please shove this in her? But like, we stand on our ancestors. For me, my ancestors are beyond just like African and other, because, you know, we from like being from Louisiana, like we got a lot of ancestors that are from everything, but like they're beyond African. They're my LGBTQ predecessors. Like, they're the drag queens that started Stonewall. They're also, you know, the women who went before and all those things. So like, they're all those ancestors. Anywho, I'm ranting, but but anyway, I just found that to be interesting. But I wonder, you know, like how so you mentioned one time, I'm talking to Shahrs. Shahrs mentioned one time something about, like, I don't remember if, and if this is unacceptable, tell me, but you mentioned one time about cutting your hair really short to like actually try to like be a boy. To try to get some of that attention. Like, can I get some of that? Can you speak to that?
What age were you?
I was in kindergarten.
Oh.
I was in kindergarten. It took me a long time, like when I was older, to realize what all was happening. And I mentioned earlier that I have a twin brother, and I kept trying to vie for love from different people. And I wasn't getting what I was looking for when I was like, especially at how old are you in kindergarten? Like 7 or 6? 5. And so I remember there's one particular story that came to me during our teacher training, actually. And it was this memory of how I always wanted my dad to teach me how to ride a bike. And I kept asking him, and he just kind of brushed me aside and be like, okay, we'll do it next week. We'll do it next week. And my brother would never ask him for any of that stuff. And I woke up one morning and I look out the window and there's my dad and my brother, like he's teaching me how to ride a bike. And so that was one of the first memories that I can think of where I was like, oh, like I can do all these things. Like I have to be a boy. You know, I can have the same interests as my father, which I tried to do for many years. I can, you know, get the degrees and like try to get his approval through all these things. But, oh, I'm not a boy. So at 5 years old, I was like, that's the only thing missing. I have to stop wearing dresses. I have to stop playing with dolls. And I don't know if that's what I actively did. But I remember I went to my mom and I was like, I can't have long hair. I have to be a boy. I have to, because being a boy meant you get to move around differently in the world, or you get acceptance from father figure. Or you get, you know, or I know my mom poured differently into me. I was about to say more, but she didn't pour more into me than my brother. But she poured differently into me because she has the experience of being an Iranian immigrant to this country, and also being an Iranian growing up in Iran, and knowing the difference of how men get treated and women get treated. So she poured into me differently than into my brother, because as women, we need we need that extra support so that we know that we're just as good. You know, and so I experienced that.
Well, shout out to Perry.
I know.
Seriously,
I love her.
She's
Oh my gosh. I'm like, can I have her,
I'm like
please?
falling in love with my mother all over again.
I love that.
It's so special. It needed to happen at some point in my life because it took some time.
Well, it always takes time, I think, because at some point we realize that our parents are right.
Well, the interesting, yeah, I know.
I don't know about that. We'd be tripping.
I mean,
there's a lot of stuff. She's got a lot of wisdom. Terry does.
Well, one of their parents hopefully is right.
Yeah.
My dad was wrong.
Well, the other thing that I'm thinking about with, you know, your previous question was how you move about the world. And one of the things that I haven't had that same secure footing as you, Davina, of like always knowing who you are. Part of it is that immigrant space. You know, we are really recent immigrants. Iranians are, you know, in the last, what was it, in the 70s, 80s was when most of us came over. And of course, even more in the last 50 years. But you come over here and it's like, you've already had this like Islamic regime that comes through and tries to, you know, that and takes over. So that starts to split, you know, what the religious to, people were religious, but they weren't like hardcore the way that it is today. So you have that, there's someone trying to strip that identity away from you. And then you come here and the hostage situation had happened in 78, you know, 77, 78. And so you come here and now you like Americans already view you as being a terrorist or being bad, quote unquote bad. And so I know a lot of Persians who, one, they wouldn't say that they were Iranian. They would say Persian, or they would, a lot of people, my cousin used to say she was Italian when we were growing up.
Wow.
And I'm like, how are you going to get away with that? Like, it's not an Italian last name.
Sicilian,
yeah.
of course.
And so, but people, we would like switch it. We would like, I know a lot of people who would do that could have been for safety. Like it could have realistically been for safety. I know my parents went to England before they came to the U.S., and it had nothing to do, it just happened to time with the revolution, but it wasn't because of it. And in England was where my dad experienced the most racism. And he was like, I was afraid to go to the pool because he's a hairy Iranian man. And over there it's just like, you know, pasty white man. So, in England of all places. And he would get comments, or he would get looks or whatever, or people would leave the pool, things like that, and he would experience that there. And then,
well, what's his name from Queer Eye would suggest that it's still that way. What's his name? I can't remember his name.
Tan.
Yes. Oh my God, he's my
so
favorite.
Tan
France.
So I can't.
No, it's I don't watch TV either. I just watch Netflix. But it's Tan France is amazing. He actually started another Instagram page called. I'll find it because it's definitely worth promoting. But it talks about colorism. His whole page is about colorism. And
very real.
It is so real. And he talks about how he's like, I'm sorry, but the reality is that England is super racist. And
wait, there's even colorism within, the Black community for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like, oh, you think you're white, and I'm like, but I am though.
Yeah, I know.
Or like
plot twist.
Or them, like when they're like, you sound white, and I'm like, one, how do you sound like a color? And two,
I can't with that.
I cannot with you, you idiot.
I can't with the you sound white thing. Like, that's the thing is that, I want to go back to one thing that you said about Trayvon. I think Trayvon made everybody conscious Blacker who was Black. Mm-hmm. Like, I distinctly remember thinking, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. Like, this is the one drop rule may be over, but you
can be light skinned all you want to. You're Black.
Yeah, everybody who is a little brown is Black now, and everybody can be shot or have the cops called on them just for living their lives. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here for any of that, and I'm not going to. So with the code switching situation, I used to code switch a lot. But it was for so many reasons. Like, first of all, my family, I wasn't Black enough for my family. Mm. Like I didn't talk Black. I didn't talk a color. I didn't talk a cultural perspective. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize until much later that how I did speak was just in an educated way. And a lot of folks in my family didn't have that education. And I mean, no shade to them, but that was the situation. I mean, my mother, definitely believed in being someone who could exist in any situation. And that meant, so for her, she had to lose a lot of Louisiana-isms, like making groceries and orange and Earl, by the way. So Shahrzad is giving these faces. Davina's from Louisiana. My family's from Louisiana. So we both know these things. So Earl is oil.
Okay.
Okay, so we need some more Earl to cook, cooking Earl. And then, and orange, you eat oranges.
Oranges. Is this an all Louisiana thing or like AAPD?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because normally there are differences between the North and the South, but this isn't one of them. Like, it's, for me, my family's from the South, and we don't consider folks from the North of Louisiana, as you know. Davina's family's from Northern Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely a thing in Scrimps.
That's all that broken English,
French.
Broken French. And it's like, wait, what are you saying?
I had a whole argument over making groceries. I was like, look, like linguistically, it actually makes sense because that is how you say it in French. That is how you say it in French and in Spanish. So it makes sense that it would have turned into, you don't say you're going to go buy groceries. You say you're going to go make the purchases. Haciendo las compras. You're going to go make your purchases, which is what you're purchasing is groceries. I'm not arguing for the use of making groceries. I'm just saying that linguistically it makes sense. And we can't just call everything that is cultural ghetto or country ignorant, or ignorant. Yeah, it actually makes sense. Just like fixin' makes sense. From somewhere, Fixin' comes from English. How are you fixed for 6 o'clock? That's how, what are you fixing to do came about. But people are just like, oh, fixin', you country, because you say fixin'. It's like, actually, it comes from the British English.
What's interesting is one of our former yogis who's moved to Mexico, Esmer, and I had this conversation a couple years ago of how we both remember when we were younger in high school, and we explicitly worked on our language so that we would sound more intellectual.
Oh, I did the same.
And we were like, man, what would I, and that fucks with your identity as well. And it's like trying to fit into these boxes of what has been deemed as okay. And we were both questioning with each other, what would I sound like if I didn't let all these things,
you sound like me.
I have no idea what I would, but I have a Persian accent because of my parents.
Probably.
I don't know.
Did you colonize your accent out of it?
I guess I did.
I think we have to. I think we have to, because the thing is that if you look at politics, listen to the radio, watch films, if you have any sort of discernible accent that points to X, you are pigeon-toed, or you are pigeonholed, not pigeon-toed, Lord Jesus. You're pigeonholed into X character. And that's just it. I mean, look at Loretta Devine. phenomenal actress, wonderful actress, but she has 3 problems.
Well, they put her in the same kind of role over and
that's
over.
because she has 3, quote, problems. She's full-figured, she's dark-complected and black, and she has a Southern accent. And once you put those 3 things together, then she's going to be the one serving up pie in The Help.
Oh, shit.
I mean, she's going to be the help, and she's going to be serving up poo pie in it.
I will say this. Having a white mother was quite interesting because that heifer will code switch in a second.
I bet she will.
Like, you can hear, because my mom is a school teacher still to this day. So, and I, unfortunately, and I don't think disrespectfully, but other people think it's disrespectful, but I call my mom Leah, her first name. So Leah would be on the phone and be talking one way, and then hang up the phone and call the next parent and be talking a whole other way.
Yes.
And you're like, who is she? Like, who is that person over there? But one of the things I respect about my mother, because she raised 4 black women, is that she would always say, like, I will never know what it's like to be you. I'll never know what it's like to walk in your shoes. I have compassion and understanding for that, but, like, I'll never know what that's like. And I'll never take advantage of that just because I have black children. And those are quotation marks for the people who can't see. Because I personally get triggered by white women who have black children who then pretend or take on
pretend to know
and you'll never freaking know.
Well, it's also white women who date black men or women and pretend to know. So one thing
I don't even care about that. I'm just like, don't pretend. That's true.
But it produces the same cultural consequence.
Yeah, you don't know
because you don't know. And one thing that I love about Lenny, and I swear I chalk it up to her having been in the military. Lenny's like, I don't know your experience. Now, I know a lot about your experience because I was in the military, and when being in the Army, you're going to be around black folks. Like, Lenny was never shocked by my hair situation, my hair rituals or things like that. She knew, what they were because she coexisted with black people in the military. And so she had a plethora of black friends, like most of her male friends in the military and lovers were black and or had an understanding of blackness because of her role in the military. Yeah. She's a welder. And so so she just knew. Now, it wasn't that she sought that out. That was the world she lived in. And I think that's also kind of an interesting thing, is like when the world that you live in changes to choice, like how you move about the world becomes different. Like you were talking about when you were in this really white environment, like having like what that looked like. And for me, for sure, I will never forget hearing Ross Perot the first time. I heard Ross Perot. I was a disciple of Oprah, right? And here comes Ross Perot. He's like, "Hi, I'm Ross Perot, and I'm running for president." And I was like, this dude is never going to win, because it doesn't matter how many companies he has. It doesn't matter what his titles are, how hard he flexes. Anybody who hears that accent is going to think he's ignorant. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, he was amazing. This dude was so wealthy. It didn't matter. And he didn't win. There was no way he was ever going to win because he was talking like this. And I was like, okay, I'm from Texas. So I have 2 choices. I can either sound like that or not sound like that. So I chose not to sound like that. To date, people are like, where are you from? I'm like, from Texas. They're like, no, but I mean originally. I'm like, yeah, no, originally I'm from here. And they're like, no way. No way. And I'm like, well, I do speak several languages. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I'm like, nah, I remember the day where I actively said, I'm not going to sound like that.
You're like, I ain't trying to sound like
that. I
am
not trying to sound like that. It can come out, and it comes out every now and then. Especially when I'm with some country ass family, it'll come out, but it rarely comes out. But historically, so I got to throw in a little bit of history, So but historically, it makes sense because like if you go to all of the places that colonized us, the whole world, I mean, your accent actually determined your social status, period. They're like, you sound like this. You have access to that. And I think it's interesting that we have taken on this role of the colonizer within our own communities that are no longer under that influence, but we still do the same shit with one another. And we still like use that against one another too. Like, oh, you say axe, so you're your country. And I'm like, or you say axe.
Wait, or stop playing, Tamika. You're pushing the envelope here.
I'm gonna say I believe that.
No, like I don't play that.
Yeah, I do not say axe. Let me ask you something. Right. But I do know people who do.
What is the one? Specific.
Oh, Pacific. No, I can't go there. Like, but that's a whole word. That's a whole word that means something totally different. Like,
and it's coming from like you as a linguist.
Yeah.
This is Tamika the linguist also.
It is like rationalizing in a way that I cannot. I just don't you come up to me talking about ask. I gotta ask
you something. I can't even do it. I gotta ask you something. But there are people I know who do it, and they're also educated people. Now, okay, my truth is that I ask myself, what college let you graduate? Still saying that,
and that's colonizing because and that's the thing, bringing us back to like this. You know, we started this talking about what are these boxes that we put ourselves in, or that we put others in, and it's like. At this point, like, there's so many people who are intellectual or not. Everyone has a place.
Yes.
You know, first of all.
Yes.
Like, whether or not you've been to school or haven't been to school.
Yes.
You've had privileges or you haven't. Like, we're, like, everyone has the same, like, we're all on the same level.
Yes.
No one is better than the other.
No, yeah, I agree.
I will say this. When I was a school teacher, flex.
You're going to, like, say that after every identity we say?
Every teacher had to, like, make their door handle thing, or the thing that you put above your door. It's like a little picture with your name on it and stuff. And this is when I worked at Yes Prep. And everybody was doing these, like, really intricate art pieces and, like, being creative. And I drew a box
with your name outside of it.
Inside of the box, I put a dot, and I wrote you. And on the outside of the box, I put me.
FYI, when I see you do shit like that on Instagram, I'm just gonna #flex.
I'm serious. And not even, like, I cannot even really say everything that I want to say most days because I'm ignorant and I know that. Like, there's a lot that I don't know. I'm not stupid, but I'm definitely ignorant.
We're all ignorant to a lot.
And I acknowledge that only because, like, there are things that I just don't care about or like they're not in my priority list of like, I need to know this. I am not skilled in many areas. So I can say, I feel like
but we also don't have to know everything or be everything. Someone put, you know, those things that always float around like, how many states have you visited? And and it's like, most people have only visited blah, blah. I'm like, every state I haven't visited, I haven't wanted to visit. FYI. Like, I don't want to visit any of them.
Well, I'm just like,
but also I'm just like, these things are stupid because first of all, it just, I don't know. I won't go there.
I don't feel bad about not knowing things. I'm just saying that I acknowledge that there are things that I don't know. And then what I think I know, which I don't know anything, but the things I do think I know, I would express myself or share about pretty openly. And I think a lot of people have, followed me on Instagram thinking like, oh, this is a really open person and she's so real and so authentic. And so then I always think it's funny when they meet me in real life and I'm the same. Waiting for this other person to arrive. Yeah. And then when I show them who I am, not who they thought I was, but when I show them who I am, especially around boundaries.
But I think that's where you code. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna disagree with you not code switching because you know what a form of code switching is though is you don't allow access to your whole self to everyone.
I do not. More so,
but that's just because of boundaries.
Yes,
I think.
For me, it's straight up boundaries. I will block somebody in a second, emotionally, energetically, back up.
Yeah. I think everyone, if you have strong boundaries, everyone has that. Like, everyone doesn't get the same access. Yeah. It's not like you're getting a different me. You're just only getting a little tiny piece.
Correct.
And then those who have earned it or who have shown that they can handle it or whatever it is, get more and more. And as I get to know you, get more. But like for a long time, I think that for me, I did not trust people to not be judgmental because I'd grown up with so much judgment, you know, and you know, I just, you know, and of course I'm the middle child too. So I'm over there tap dancing for my family, just like tap dancing for my family, like, hey, I'm over here. And they're like, look, I'm going to need you to do what you do. I don't have time.
It's exhausting. Mine currently, I mean, mine looks like when I'm with people who don't understand like the world that I'm in, I have to act like I know what I'm doing and I have a path and a plan.
Yeah.
So it's like you decided to not do whatever, but like, no, but I have a plan. Like this all is going somewhere. And so I do that with some people. But with others, I'm like, I'm just in the present moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, have you found that to be more of a thing whenever you're around Persian people?
Yes.
Because there's such a success oriented. You know, it's interesting.
No.
Is that
older Persians, people who are my age, see it differently, and I think it's because we're all experiencing. Yeah, I think everyone's. And there are some, you know, it's kind of a little bit of both because we're in this. I mean, we're in our 30s. There's a space of like, okay, I followed all the rules, and now like, where am I at? Do I like it? Do I not? And then there's a part of like, man, I don't actually like where I'm at, but I'm afraid to step out because it's in the opposite direction of everything I thought I've known.
But what's so interesting is that like in Persian culture, it's so success oriented, and in Black culture, it's survival oriented. It's so weird. It's like it doesn't matter how successful you are. Did you die though? You know. But that is fudged.
It's like, oh, you're doing this now, like, but you're the manager, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. All of it is crazy. All of it is crazy, and I just I feel like that's where a lot of those things, you know, a lot of that I don't know, walking about the planet is informed by that. So what do y'all feel about being like brown and in yoga, and what do you guys think about teaching from a philosophy that is not a part of your heritage?
I have no qualms about being a Black person or a brown person teaching yoga. And it could be because I'm like blocking all the negative energy, but I don't feel judged, or I've actually never felt uncomfortable in the yoga setting in that sense. I think where I felt more judged was not about my skin. It was more so about size. And as far as the second question was about...
It was about teaching from a heritage that isn't yours.
Yeah. So I have a private client who is from India, and she goes back every now and then, or actually every year, not now and then, she goes back every year. And she shared with me that, like, I remind her of her people or her peers. And she has been coming to my class for years. And she's like, I love that you are who you are. You show up authentically. You know, do these things. And it's like you're a walking, what did she say? Like a walking, I can't think of the word. But basically, I'm walking my talk. And I'm not putting out one facade, like something out front, and then that's not actually who I am. And so she respects
that's too much work anyway.
Yeah, but
for grown folks.
I'm sorry, don't play that, because there are so many black and brown teachers and white teachers, honestly, who do the whole like and the chakras and the crystals and do all of that, and then go out and, you know, cuss somebody out in the parking lot or whatever the case is, or don't even know the history of yoga.
Yeah, but I just, to me, that's a lot of work. Like walking, like purporting one thing and then acting totally differently. That's too much work for me. I don't have time to do that type of work.
I think people just have like split personalities.
I don't think they have split personalities. I think they're working real hard on that, and that's their child. Like for me, I have a whole real child, so I don't have time. I don't have time to be doing that. I just don't. What about you?
What was the first question?
First question, I don't know.
What was it? How do I feel brown? Yeah, how do I feel being brown and being a teacher or being in yoga? I only recently really started to feel it, and it was more when I started practicing in different spaces that were mostly white, and I was like feeling very uncomfortable being the only brown person. It was very strange. And I still feel that. I mean, it's been in the last 2 or 3 years. That's one of the reasons I love the studio that we were at, you know, because I remember I walked into the room and it was literally every type of person, every type of career, every type of body shape, every type of color.
And every gender.
And every gender. And every, you know.
Diverse.
The diversity was the first thing I noticed when I first moved to Houston and practiced in that way. So that's the main thing. As a teacher, I feel great actually now. Every time I teach, I feel really steadfast, I guess is the word that's coming to mind. But as a student of it in the U.S. or in Houston, I feel like sometimes I feel very like I tokenize myself, which is a weird thing too. But I feel very singled out.
It might be quote weird, but I think it makes sense because when you're, I mean, we are walking in this path of in a lineage that culturally doesn't belong to us, but we are with gratitude and honor for the original lineage, sharing it. I think that is a very different thing for all three of us than for other teachers, particularly some teachers of color that are out there doing the thing that are it's not even about teachers of color. I think it's about a lot of people in full stop, just like taking on this persona of like yogi and wearing all the things and doing all the things and not actually.
That feels more like cultural appropriation there. In my
completely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the big thing that I'm. So I've been teaching now almost I did my training 4 years ago. So at the beginning, it was a lot of like, oh, I love the feeling of these things that I'm hearing. So it was kind of that like imitation a little bit. But then there was also that thing inside of me where I was like, something's off. I don't know enough. I don't know. Like there's something that I could always be doing more of. And how am I honoring this thing that is not mine? And I look Indian. People usually think that I'm Indian. And so I always felt a little bit, not wrong, but I felt a little weird about that because I was like, you think that I represent this thing because I look like I'm Indian, but I'm not. So I didn't want to step on any toes with that. Where my transformation, I think, has come and feeling more comfortable in teaching it is like actually taking the time to read and study the sutras and study the lineage and honoring it. And I don't need to like say it at the beginning of every class of like, this is where everything came from, you know, all these. Every single new age, what's it called? Like personal development book is literally the Yoga Sutras.
I know.
Things that I was teaching in different words. And that is the most fascinating thing to me is like, this is literally like thousands of years old.
Until you read American Veda and you're like,
but actually teaching, I need to read that. But actually teaching from the sutras and that's where Vipassana was like an injection of that too, was like living every single moment of my day with that in my mind of like, how am I moving in this world? And using that, that's where I feel more in line and in step. And I don't feel like I'm appropriate. I'm very sensitive to, am I appropriating or am I not? And what can I do to honor it? That's how I feel. I feel much better now that like when I do speak in those ways.
I do have to say this. I want to share that it's not just the crystals and the like woo and the dresses and the flowy. It's not just that, but the other side of it is your trap yogas and your like.
I love trap yoga.
I know, but it's in the same boat. It's the twerking during the classes. Yeah, it is.
Actually, you brought something up the other day about booty yoga.
Yeah,
well, that's different for me in a whole nother boat. But I'm saying in terms of like. Trap Yoga Bay did her teacher training in India.
I know.
And to come back, and my thing is same thing about booty yoga. Call it something else.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's my thing on all of it. For me, because I actually love trap yoga and
trap yoga?
Wait, but I was just about to say.
Like rap music? Okay.
Exactly. I was just about to say, I personally did not love although I'm so happy that this person is cultivating a space for people who feel that there is no space for them in yoga. I personally did not enjoy Trap Yoga Bay's experience because for me, it was a very basic sequence, and I want it to flow more. I feel very much like anybody who, now, as you know, I curse, but I don't need someone to curse all the time to like legitimize themselves as being authentic. For me, that's just like, I curse in all the languages I speak, and I don't feel compelled to have to say, you know, fuck in a class. Like I might say it outside of it, but I am acutely aware that I have people of all different situations in my class. And for me, that's not trap. For me, to answer your question, for me, trap yoga is simply doing your authentic practice with music that is modern, and from and Black American inspired. So for me, like doing yoga with trap music is trap yoga, and practicing authentically in the practice. Because the thing is for me, trap is all about like embracing all of the stuff that has been pushed to the margins of society, and saying, no, that's okay. And so I can get behind that, because I feel that who are the ones who are saying what's okay in society?
Like, why call it trap yoga?
But for me, it's like, simply because of the music.
I know, but I also know the person who founded trap yoga, which was not trap yoga.
I know, it's that dude over in DC.
Copeland, yes, which is, his philosophy is not that.
No,
I'm like, we've changed it
up.
What
is his philosophy?
Well, I mean, it's also this idea of like being in the trap. Meet me in the trap, right? And this is their space to be themselves, to journey through what that is like within their body and the movement of their practice with the sounds. But to me, I'm like, that's traumatizing as hell. If that's the case, then like my mind's going there, and to if I'm listening to this music and I'm embodying that or trying to move past that with movement, I have no idea.
Yeah, for me, it's not very trauma informed.
It's not. And so for me, I'm more of like the goat yoga, stop the trap. Like, just call it yoga, and you can say like, I'm teaching with trap music. Yeah, that's fine. But
for me, that's what that is.
There's no sequencing methodology or anything that you could say is like, this is trap yoga.
Yeah, no. For me, trap yoga is simply teaching yoga
with
to trap music.
Gotcha.
It's not about but it's also, for me, it's always about authenticity. I'm not going to teach differently because I'm teaching yoga with trap music as well. I'm not going to curse throughout the entire class, because I wouldn't do that anyway.
Right.
Now, I would do twerking chaturanga, because those are fun. And
you throw your sacrum off, girl.
Girl, my sacrum is fine. My sacrum was made for that. No, but I do believe in bringing. But for me, Tamika Caston-Miller, I believe in bringing an element of fun to the practice as well for myself.
Yeah.
And that is authentic expression for me. So that's what I'm bringing. If that's not authentic expression for someone else, it would be isolating and appropriating their experience to force them into that. So, but what I was saying about booty yoga the other day is that what I believe the theory behind booty yoga is because they're trying to make these circular movements, theoretically, like moving the nadis or shaking the nadis up to move energy up Sushumna Nadi. Okay, that is what I think is the goal for that. However, I mean, the thing is that I don't think that's oftentimes what is stated or what have you.
Y'all just doing African dance half the time. Now what?
My thing is, it's not.
I was just about to say that.
It's not appropriating, in my opinion. It's not appropriating yoga. It's culturally appropriating African movements, African dance. Yeah. And so, like, I wouldn't mind taking a booty yoga class from someone Black. I would mind taking booty yoga from someone white. And then that sounds crazy, but it's true. I would have. I don't know. It's just weird for me.
My thing is like, we sitting here, the three of us, have an understanding of what yoga is, right? And in terms of the asana practice, we know you can research Iyengar, Ashtanga. You can go back and look at Krishnamacharya. You can go back and do all of that. And my thing is in this pursuit, in the commercialization and the capitalism within the yoga industry, we can do better. Like, stop calling these things, stop creating things based off of this ancient practice that does not need it.
No,
that's the thing, is that it doesn't need, it's literally existed
room
for thousands of years.
Yes.
And it's like, it's, what's the word? It's, like transcended all of these things. Like, I don't need to add this adjective to make it sexy for today.
It's like what I said the other day, I don't know if you were in that class, but I'm like, I told a whole like 55 people who are looking at me who are ready to get a good sweat. I'm like, look, if you're just here for a good sweat, like, okay, I'm glad you're here. And like Jane Fonda did not survive the 80s. Okay. Yoga has literally survived 2,000 years. So if you're here for an alternative to jazzercise, that's not what this is. Like, at some point you have to understand that something that's been around hella long has something beyond just like, let's do the movements. Oh, it's time to do the thing. And let's get the sweat. I feel better. Gatorade, whatever. It's just like, it's gotta be more than that, because it lasts. Like, bullshit ends, truth continues.
Here's what happens when we don't call these things out now, then you end up, I had someone, I don't care, I'm going to say it because I'll tell it to her face, but literally that approached me, who's in a teacher training that just finished a basic teacher training. And it's like, yeah, I'm thinking of leading teacher training in 2022. Did you say leading? 2 years from now. So when we don't speak up, this is what happens. And people think that, I just needed to learn these things, and like, that's yoga. And now I have the right. I don't even think that I have the right or should have the audacity to be leading teacher trainings. And yet here's someone who's been practicing for like 6 months, did a teacher training, is on
a 200 hour.
Yes, and is now currently in my 300 hour. And now has the audacity to come to their teacher and say, yeah, I'm thinking about leading.
I'm going to do this.
But it's all that, trying to make money off of yoga. And I get it. White people have been doing it. Let's just be real. Right. And so I think in the black and brown communities, people are trying to figure out, how do I make this money then? I see these people killing the game and making all this money off of yoga. So it's like the same thing that happens in every other industry. Now, black people are trying to figure out, how do I make money to do this? And I'm like, not like that.
But if you start with that goal, I think that's your downfall.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is like, for me, being in a place now where I can, for me, yoga has informed other things that I am doing, and sharing about those things has been something that is worthy of paying for. And also, sharing, delivering experiences are things that people have said are worth paying for. That said, I think for me, it's not like I need to make X dollars and therefore I'm going to do this. And for a long time, and I think if you don't have a little bit of discomfort initially in charging for yoga, then that says a lot. Like, for me, it's been a shift to even be like, okay, well then I guess I'll charge blah, blah, blah. Like, I had someone tell me, she was like, that's how much you charge for a sound bath? They're like, girl, do you know how much work you're, and they're right. Like, it's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of self-preparation. It's a lot of investment of time, energy, money, like just to actually have bowls as you learn is a big expense, and to transport, it's a lot. I need help getting there and all that stuff. And so I was like, oh, well, but I feel like this is what's fair, for compensation. And they're like, no, you're undercharging people. But for me, it was uncomfortable to ask for that. So that's been a shift, right? So for now, even still, like, now that I am going to lead, a teacher training in the
What's the price
summertime,
of teacher training?
$3,900.
Thank you, Jesus. I was like,
Okay. But I think it's
and
fair.
It's in Peru.
And it is.
And there's pieces here too, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like,
the pieces here are.
Are they in addition to the 3,900?
No.
Okay.
They're included. But the 3,900 is the whole experience. Oh, and FYI, if you are interested in that teacher training, 3 of the teachers are right here on this podcast episode.
I'm
But
just like, because
No.
the pricing. You
For
just said
others?
it, though. But you said it. Some people have a problem charging.
But it's not a problem charging. What it is a problem holding. I don't know. It's people wanting to make money. Is what it is.
Yeah, but my thing is like, don't make your teacher training cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the teacher training at the industry rate and make payment plans. Like, if you
Yes.
want to help people out in that way, there's another way to do it versus like devaluing everybody else.
But people are not trying to help people.
No,
People are trying to grab market share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's like,
that's when it's like ego is getting in the way of
Yes.
like, this is my training and this is why you should do this one and not that one. I think we talked about it as like, if I'm not the right teacher for you, I'm going to give you 10 other options that I know of that could be a great fit.
Exactly.
first of all, I'm not trying to undervalue teacher trainings, because if you're doing it right, people are learning a lot. And you personally had to learn a lot in order to share that. And for me personally, I'm missing teaching my own students for this training.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing being at home with my family doing this training. I believe that is really important. And I believe that there is a value to that. If you want to learn yoga is free.
Right?
Like, it's free. You can learn yoga for free. But if you want to learn how to teach yoga from me, you're asking for time, you're asking for the investment I put in, and that costs something, and it costs, and there is an industry standard. My question is, for $1,000 or $1,100 or whatever, what are you getting from that?
But when you don't know, you don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you think like, this is amazing. This is all I got. How many of y'all got duped? How many of y'all got duped for $3,000? Okay.
I mean, my thing is this. For me,
I got lucky with that one. I slid right under.
Yeah.
For me as a curious person, I knew, we had a whole hashtag going. Hashtag not in the 200 hour.
I saw,
Yeah, like, we knew that there were things that we were not learning because we knew we weren't getting the whole story.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it seeded curiosity. Now, I know that for like 25 others, it didn't.
Right.
But
there are people who come out of training saying like, I'm a great teacher. Like, I'm a great hot yoga teacher. And I'm like, you mean you can memorize a sequence because you do not know anatomy. Mm-hmm. You do not.
I still feel like that. And I've been in this I've been practicing 10 years. I've been like teaching for 3 or 4. And I'm like, I still don't feel competent enough. And I think that's the work I think my experience.
Is there a point in which you feel competent enough?
No, because the world is always changing. The body is always changing.
Yes.
And if you get to that though, then you got a problem.
Right. I think and the world of biomechanics is changing.
Yeah,
so
always.
every time you learn anything about biomechanics, things like Judith Lassiter is writing a book right now that I think that I was telling in training that I think the title of the book is Stop Tucking Your Tailbone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's old though. That's years old.
But her book is literally called that.
Love that.
And she's just like, y'all, can we please stop teaching this? Can we stop saying this? Can we stop doing this? Like, you're hurting people. This is where injuries come from. But the thing is that people will go to 200. Like, I don't know. Like, I am naturally curious, so I can't just stop with where I am. Also, I mean, my wife would say that I have to continue collecting certifications and degrees. Whatever. I mean,
I had a really different experience going through training because I know that some of our peers were like, I can do this too. Like, this thought of like, I can do this and I can do it better. Mm-hmm. I know a couple of people had that thought. And my experience was the opposite. It was a very humbling experience of like, I thought I knew a bunch and I realized how much I don't know. And it was like, is recognizing how much inner work needed to be done before you can even show up to the stage to think about teaching. Yeah. Just to think about teaching. Like, the knowledge and all that will come. You can do trainings and you can go look at a cadaver. I can do all that stuff. And there's so much inner wisdom that's still in like inner growth. If you're not doing your own shit, if you're not taking care of yourself, I don't want you teaching me. And that was something that that was a thing that I did love about the training was that one of our lead trainers, maybe day 7 or something, demonstrated, because she kind of came out. I remember specifically a story, and I don't think it's appropriate to share it right now. It's like not my story, but you could see her in her work in front of all of us. There were 55 of us there, 60 of us there.
No, you guys are pushing the limit. We never had more than 51.
I mean, so we had 9 assistants. There were,
you're talking about the people that are in the room. I was like, y'all be lying.
Oh, we were 41 plus 9. We were 50 people total that were in the room. But I loved that she was in that experience in front of us because it kind of showed me that evolution never stops. Yeah. And it humbled me in that moment to be like, this is never ending. Like, this onion is never ending that I'm peeling. And that is also necessary in order for me to guide people through whatever experience they're about to have.
But can I say, I think that part of the reason why we feel the way that we feel is because we are not white people. And I'm sorry, but no intentional shade to white listeners, but like the thing is there is a sense of privilege of being able to just occupy a space and put up a Soul Cycle in Brooklyn and begin to gentrify a whole area. And the thing is I think that what has happened is that yoga itself has become a bit gentrified. Absolutely. And by a bit, I mean a lot. Hello, and I'm looking at you, Baron Baptiste, but like it has been, and intentionally changing the language. So, for example, Baron Baptiste is famous for saying, "Find the balance between effort and ease." That is totally not what Sitaran Sukha actually even means. But he's like, "Nah, this is how I'm saying it because it sounds good," and it's like, no, it's steadiness and ease. And I'm like, you changed the whole thing because you had the caucasity to do it.
Hey, well, not even because one of y'all's teachers took Sanskrit out of the training that was originally there. Because I learned Sanskrit in the first Yoga 1 training, and it eventually was taken out.
I know, and I remember it was purposeful. And when I learned yoga, like my yoga practice was always in Sanskrit, and it was odd that it was always that it was in English from, changing to that studio. And I was just like, why are we taking this out? And what's crazy is just like any language. Like for me, I'm like fuzzy on the Sanskrit now. And I'm like, this is bullshit because this is literally how I came to the practice was through the language of Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is the great unifier of yoga. But like the reality for me, being a Black woman navigating this space where a lot of people don't even believe that I belong because I am a full figured woman. I mean, the hate in the community is real,
excuse me, where's your half top?
Yeah, and just like all of that, or where's your Lululemon? I'm like, literally, Lululemon does not sell shit in my size. But hello, Prana and Athleta, I will sport them all day. You know what I'm saying? But and then I'm like, you know what? Screw Lululemon. Like my first 6 years of practicing yoga, I practiced in Walmart Damskin brand because that's what I could very quickly pick up. I wasn't trying to, be anything or whatever. I was just trying to be there.
I'll tell you what. And not because I'm an ambassador, but because there are no other tights that have held me quite right. And I still have, to this day, my first pair of Lululemon pants.
You know what? Screw Lululemon and their sizes policies.
Okay, so I feel that. But it's also like when people have niches, like petite stores and stores that are boutique stores.
It's not a niche to go up one size.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a different story. I'm just saying that like people who have items that are only in this size or only in this style.
Look, I know you're gonna love on Lululemon because you're an ambassador.
No, but for real, we can't sell everything. What's their product? Not forget Lululemon. Think of someone else. I think of Tommy Hilfiger. And how,
but even he had to transition. Even he had to say, you know what, Black folks are buying my brand.
They
better.
They are evolving.
Until they do,
they are evolving.
I'm a fuck Lululemon all day long.
They are evolving, and they are supporting people in community in ways that they have not in years past. And you can see it. Like, you can, if you go.
For me, Lululemon is the Soul Cycle of yoga clothes. There, I said it.
I've never been to Soul Cycle, so I
haven't either because of that.
What that is, anyway.
But they go into areas. They like place a little Soul Cycle, and in this area, and then the whole area like just transitions around them. It's like the beginning. You can tell where gentrification. If you ever want to know where to buy real estate, find the Soul Cycles because they are a part of the gentrification. Whatever. I'm not trying to damn.
Then we would have one in Third Ward or Midtown. So stop playing.
Soul Cycle. I'm sure there is
one. I'm talking about a Lululemon.
Oh, a Lululemon. No, they ain't ready. They ain't ready. They're like, nah, we're gonna stick with Houston Heights. But I feel that we are able to have this conversation because we know that we are not of this lineage, and we do not immediately go in and have the audacity to just go in and colonize and call it and place a stick in it and say ours. Like, we're like, look, this is not mine. This is literally from this other place, and I give honor and respect for its lineage. And I am stepping into this lineage with respect. Yeah. And that's different. I think that like how intersectionality works to the benefit of others, is because we can then teach from that space. Because folks just be like the person, I'm curious about this person who took a 200-hour who thinks she can teach in 5 minutes. Is this person a person of color?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, because, the yoga entrepreneurship workshops and things like that inspire and motivate people to do this for a living and make money. And so teacher training is a way to make money. So she's assisting in teacher training. She's assisting, I don't know what the name of that training is, but she's assisting a 200-hour training led by another person of color.
But she's been a yogi for 6 months.
She did her training in maybe the last year. So I don't know. It might be more than 6 months. But
my thing is that if she's been practicing for like 10 years, and she's
not even old enough for it to be.
I was trying.
Yeah,
I was trying. I did try, because I don't actually look at it as how long you've been teaching. I look at it as how long you've been practicing.
In the sense of, and me and Sharks have talked about this in regards to, say, someone like you haven't necessarily been teaching yoga for a very long time. But you're a teacher. Well, and actually you're an educator.
But I actually was teaching yoga, just not according to Yoga Alliance.
Well, either way.
Because I was teaching, when I was teaching my kids, I would teach them not certified.
However you want to call it. The point is that because of your life experiences and your expertise in so many.
Yeah.
Girl.
There's the element of you're an educator, and this is what I'm noticing personally, being able to study and do trainings this year with both of you, is getting to experience it from an actual educator's perspective of setting up lesson plans and making sure we understand what do you call it? Check for understanding. All of that stuff. And it's I feel like I'm in school again, which is so different than any of the other trainings where it was just blurting out information that was half information and half just stories. So there's that.
Sorry, but that is hilarious.
Yep, I had one experience, and I'll share it some other time. And it was from someone who wasn't from Houston. It was a very interesting experience. But yeah, so there's that. You're an educator, so you know how to actually teach people. 2, you've been in your own personal work for over 10 years, 15 years maybe, that you've been in this practice and in the self-study. And because of your curiosity and because you are a historian, you are a linguist, you have that natural, that need to dig in a little more than what someone's going to give you just in a worksheet.
Oh, yeah.
You're not
or in an Instagram post, right? You see an Instagram post and all of a sudden you know everything about this topic, right?
Oh, I get it.
So, oh my God, I've evolved just by reading these posts. So it's not just a performative thing that you're doing. You've actually gone in and you're doing all these trainings. You're bringing it all back. And so I find that's for me was where I was like, okay, this is what living that life looks like. This is what, living your yoga looks like.
Well, I appreciate you saying
I'll say this, and I'm sure I don't know what this is about. How long can we go? I got to roll. But what I want to say is that what I did take from the experience, or I will say one of the positive things, which there were many, but that stands out from the trainings that we have been a part of is I am not afraid to be who I am.
Yeah.
And those practice, like being in teacher trainings, helped me just be like, Davina, it's okay to be you. It is okay to be you. Many of times I've been sat in the middle of a circle and 50 people have watched me cry. Many a times have people watch me walk through personal traumas that I don't even know like that. So I will say this, I 100% learned to it's solidified. I've never been afraid to be me, but it was like, don't you ever back down from who you are moving forward. And it was funny because then on the other side of that, when, Yoga One was sold, I had to face my teacher and not back the
and not
down.
Be you. Yeah. I mean, and not be you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she didn't like it. She did not like it, but it was like, you created this monster.
Yeah.
You solidified that for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would say that from what I really gained from that experience was being able to name my bullshit. That for me was a huge, huge blessing because I didn't see what it was for myself and I had to identify it so then I could be of service to other people. But, as I've mentioned time and time again, until I was able to move past my own bullshit stories, I could not be of service to others, at least not in the same way.
Yeah.
It was so much work, like dealing with my own bullshit stories and trying to be of service and trying to empower other people. It was like, even though I was empowering them, I wasn't able to receive the blessing of their thank you, their gratitude for it, because I was too busy in imposter syndrome, which is really just a screwed up relationship with ego. And so being able to actually see that, I was like, you know what? No, actually, I do have something to bring to the table. I do not know everything. I'm okay with not knowing everything. And I'm okay with being able to say, I am still in my own work. And I've done a lot of work before now, which for me came actually out of being in spiritual director training, which had happened like 10 years prior to that. So like going through that and identifying my own dogma and all that stuff, and then bringing all of that formation to the table was a huge gift. So, I mean, there's something to say for for all of those trainings, but did it prepare me to go lead a 200-hour training? Hell no, man. I had to learn a lot more than that. But anyway, what about you? What was your biggest takeaway from
our training?
Yeah.
Well, I shared it that the evolution never stops. I think that's a constant thing that keeps revealing itself to me. You just want to be evolved and be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the biggest takeaway, is that the evolution never ends. And then also how hidden I was under all of my shit. And I think I'm still uncovering a bunch of it, because that stuff is,
I think we keep uncovering it.
It's so deep, and it's just never it's never ending. But yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. Evolution never ends.
I will say one last thing is I learned to cite your sources, because a lot of times when our teachers would say things, they would say it as though they invented those things.
Oh, no.
And I was like, wait a minute. When I started learning more, I'm like, oh, this is not your saying. This is not your story. This is not your quote. None of these are yours. These are things that came from, cite your damn sources.
Well, they did used to, and then it got to a point where they stopped calling out their teachers' names and stopped calling out.
But some of it was like, ancient wisdom.
I mean, I think it literally just shifted in time to not do that, you know, just so that they
were elevated.
Mm-hmm.
They were on this status.
Mm-hmm.
And I love both of them still. Yeah. And that was not okay. Like, as a former classroom educator, cite your sources, because you then stole a lot. If you didn't, that was plagiarism. Mm-hmm. And selling it as your own words was not okay. And for me, that was the first lesson in cultural appropriation I learned, was when people would take, white people would take brown people's words as their own and sell that shit. That was a problem for me. It continues to be a problem for me.
Yeah.
And it continues to happen.
Happens every day.
I'm like,
or artwork or whatever. Anything creative is constantly being taken.
Yeah, but especially from whom, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we live in abundance, and it's all coming, it is all higher consciousness being birthed and rebirthed and all of those things. And stop acting like these words are your own when they're not. Period. Mm-hmm. With a T. And on that note, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful for knowing you two, two of the most conscious people I know. And for Davina specifically, what I love about you is that you're very transparent with your own evolution and your work. And I appreciate that. And so to follow Davina, to add to her many ass followers, you can follow her at I am Davina Davidson. And train with her. I've trained with her, and she's amazing. You're an amazing trainer of teachers, and I really appreciate all those lessons. Actually, I think I have a shout out to you on my website. What? I'm pretty sure. Girl, I'm pretty sure y'all win there.
You made me send this video to you that I tried to make for Instagram and started bust out crying when I started talking about you the other day.
Oh,
I was like, don't post that shit. Stop playing.
Post it, make me cry. So please do follow Davina. She's super real, and now that you have heard her talk, you know too, how much of a servant's heart she has, which is, I think, so much of what we need in the community. And then Shahrs, who I already gave a shout out to yesterday, but Shahrs for me is someone who actively is seeking to see people and consistently interested in learning and evolving, and then sharing that evolution, which is huge, because it shows a curiosity that makes me more curious, and it shows a connection that makes me want to connect in better and more beautiful ways. So Shahrzad's wisdom can be found at Shahrzad. There is an H in there. Do the work to learn how to spell it. Shahrzad K. Yes.
We didn't even go into the main conversation.
But just as a key, the word Shah is a word, and that word is in Shahrzad, which leads me to believe that it has something to do with royalty. Is that true?
My name?
Yes.
I think there are different translate. Huh? Claim it. I mean, I can translate however I want, I guess. And I think it's more like Shad, which means city, like born of the city. Zad means to be born of, or like freedom of the city. There's a lot of different ways to. I'm
gonna put you as royalty from a royal city. Mm-hmm. I bet that means a royal city.
It might.
I wonder. Maybe.
I think it means born of the city or something like that, like city born. I think technically is what it means.
You are always bougie.
I know. Such a city.
By the way, she's bougie as hell. Yes, she is. So. Yes, you are. You want me to show up everywhere in a full gown?
If I could, I would. And I would still have no makeup on.
Right. Shar shows up everywhere in a full gown. Davina shows up everywhere in a hoodie. And I'm like usually in some tie-dye or cowgirl boots or Birkenstocks.
I think you get dressed up more than I do. You know what though? I do claim my the storyteller name. because that's what I'm named after. It's not about like the actual name of the translation of my name. It's the Shahrzad who told the stories for 1001 Nights. Go Google that. Arabian Nights, 1001 Nights.
Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, I just made that connection. I literally just made that connection.
That's what I'm named after.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Anywho, and you can find me.
And let me just add to
yes, go ahead.
My last name means universe.
What? You're telling the stories of the universe. What? That is so awesome.
Yeah, that was there.
That's yeah, I can see that. Okay, and you can find me at diva_transcending because I'm trying to transcend the bullshit and the labels and the boxes and not I'm trying, I am. And I am working to cultivate a community of conscious people who are willing to speak truth to bullshit and who are willing to transcend those things with me. Because we all need to elevate, especially in 2020 where things are going to get more difficult and more divisive. Like we have a choice as to whether to be a part of that division or whether to be on the compassion team. So please do follow all three of us and participate in the Love Dare Challenge. I have currently a Shavasana challenge because I am daring people to rest. I dare you to do something that is not for money or for success. Just sit in your own body and just chill for a while and see what happens. Just see what happens.
Not about the likes.
No, it's not about the likes. And you don't have to post it. But if you do, you will start helping to transform what Insta Yoga and what the yogagram looks like. So I would love for that to happen. Thank you so much for listening. If anyone has been ever following this show, you know that things are always longer whenever I have guests. So I hope that you poured yourself a drink. FYI, we are just drinking water. But I hope that you poured yourself a drink and you listened and you participated and talked back. And if you want to send us a message, please do hop into our DMs. Not with eggplants, but with actual like information.
Speak for yourself.
If you're popping in with eggplants, I need you to go back and ask yourself, why do you think it's necessary?
Why do you think
Why do you think you need to slide in with an eggplant?
And who the hell are you?
Eggplants are good.
They are tasty.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what they mean. But anyway, please do just communicate with us because we want to communicate with you. And if there's something that you would like to ask either one of us, ask. Thank you again so much. It's always my hope to leave you better than I found you. I hope that happened for you today. Namaste. You've been listening to Think, Flow, Grow. This is Tamika with Asha Yoga. I'd love to hear your feedback and would love to hear any topics that you'd like for me to address. Feel free to email me at tamika@ashayoga.com. Also, you can go to that website to find out upcoming workshops, retreats, and events in your area.